Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, the creator and host of the award-winning podcast that you're listening to right now. Thank you so much, called Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. It is a daily podcast, 365 days a year, and each day we talk to an author about all of the things related to their career, their book, their life, and more in 30 minutes or less, because who has time? I am now an author myself, although I wasn't when I started this podcast, and you can get my new memoir, Bookends, a memoir of love, loss, and literature, wherever books are sold starting July 1st, and my children's book, Princess Charming. You can learn more about me at zibbyowens.com, but really you're here to learn more about the authors, and that is what we're going to do. Also, be sure to check out all the other podcasts in the Zcast Podcast Network. You can learn more at zcastnetwork.com and definitely check out those shows as well. Also, just a quick note that submissions for the Zibby Awards are open and will close on September 15th. Go to zibbyowens.com and you will find the Zibby Awards open submissions where we celebrate all the under-celebrated parts of a book, like the best spine, the best author's note, the best table of contents. And authors can nominate their own best publicists, best editors, and so on. There will be an in-person award ceremony in October in New York. You will not want to miss it. Go to zibbyowens.com. Jean Meltzer is the author of Mr. Perfect on Paper, a novel. Jean has the unique distinction of being the world's only Emmy-award-winning, chronically ill and disabled rabbinical-school dropout. Yet, it is this extraordinary background, coupled with a firm belief in holding on to your joy and seeking out happy endings, which forms the basis of her diverse work. Jean received her BFA from New York University, Tisch School of the Arts, Department of Dramatic Writing in 2002. After graduation, she served as creative director of Tapestry International, an Oscar-winning television and film production company, where she oversaw the writing, development, and production for over 250 hours of children's television and won numerous awards for her work. In 2006, Jean moved to Israel to pursue a career in the rabbinate and studied at several colleges and seminaries for 5 years. She also became an outspoken advocate for the disease myalgic encephalomyelitis chronic fatigue syndrome. In 2012, Jean ended her rabbinical studies and spent many years homebound due to this disease. Today, Jean lives a thriving, chronically fabulous Jewish life in Virginia. She sees her challenges as part of a larger journey and is eager to share her stories with others. Her first book, The Matzah Ball, was published by Mira in 2021 and is being developed into a feature film by Sugar 23 with Lance Bass Productions, Brett Gursky, and Ben Savage producing. Welcome, Jean. Thanks so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss Mr. Perfect on Paper.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Really an honor.
I told Jean, right before we started that I don't know when this is releasing, but today is when the August Books article that I wrote for Good Morning America came out and Jean's book was on there. So I was just telling her, and that was really fun to see her reaction.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so cool. I was saying how I kind of grew up my whole life watching GMA. I'm a GMA girl, so it's really quite an honor. I never ever thought I would be on any GMA list, so I'm very, very honored. So you're going to get me all verklempt even before we begin. It really means a lot to me.
Oh, good.
And I'm excited to be here.
So, Jean, okay, first let's talk about what your book is about, Mr. Perfect on Paper.
So Mr. Perfect on Paper is about a third-generation matchmaker named Dara Rabinowitz, who finds her private search for love sort of inadvertently thrust into the national spotlight when her bubby shares her list for the perfect Jewish husband on national television, as bubbies tend to do. And sort of as this nationwide hunt ensues, it goes viral, of course, this nationwide hunt ensues, she finds her heart more and more drawn to Christopher Steadfast, the totally charming, but also really not Jewish reporter following her story. And it was partly inspired by my own love story. I was a first-year rabbinical school student. I am deeply committed to my faith. I was deeply committed to my faith. And plot twist, I fell in love with a non-Jewish man. And so my second book, I really wanted to sort of explore the tension between loving your faith and falling in love with someone outside of your faith, and sort of how you navigate this in this modern world.
And how do you navigate this?
It's interesting. I always say, I was a rabbinical student, and I always sort of say the difference between a rabbi and an author is a rabbi literally means teacher. And a rabbi's job is to teach, to answer questions. But I feel like an author's job is to ask questions and not necessarily answer them. And so I guess what I would say to that is how you navigate it. I guess the book is sort of, it asks the question, but it doesn't necessarily give you an answer because I think it's a very individual journey and every couple has to decide what's right for them.
My second husband actually converted to Judaism.
Yes.
Which is how we navigated that one.
Yes. So did he do the whole Hatafat Dam thingy?
He did. He had like a mikvah and we did a service on the stage and it was a whole thing. We worked closely with the rabbi for many weeks on it. And
it's a long time to convert into Judaism. It's not like wham bam, you got to like study. And so my husband had also converted to Judaism as well. So a lot of that sort of like his learning and his experience, as well as sort of like in the book of like kind of, but it's interesting. So you did then have this sort of experience where as a Jewish woman, what are your lines? What are you willing to, sort of move on versus not? So, I mean, I guess it's definitely more common nowadays, but
yeah, it's really, maybe I shouldn't say that. I was going to say it was more important for me to raise my kids Jewish. Mm-hmm. So because I wasn't having kids with my second husband, it wouldn't have been like a total deal breaker as long as he would like come with me to everything. But he volunteered. He's like, no, I want to be part of what everybody else is doing. And that was really sweet.
That's so sweet. But yeah, I mean, again, it's that idea of like how we navigate and what we want and what we're going to choose or not choose. What did he find to be the most interesting part of Judaism coming into it? I always felt like with my husband, I made him go to Yom Kippur services, like the first round. I made him sit there for like 12 hours. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
I was expecting him to leave, like just be done. But he stayed around. That's how you know love.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's true love. Not 12 hours, or like 2 hours or something. 2 or 3 hours. He does fast, he fasts with us, but I mean, to be honest, he's, Italian Catholic by origin. And he's like, it's not so different. There's so much, there's the guilt, there's the food, there's the family, emphasis on family. So he didn't feel like it was such a leap. So
yeah, I do. It's interesting because my husband is half Albanian and then on the other side, Italian, German, and Irish. But very similar, even like the Albanian customs when we were getting married. So it's, the circle dancing, they had circle dancing, we had circle dancing. So it was very easy to sort of like, even though we couldn't have come from like more different worlds and backgrounds in some weird way, because our values were so similar and our cultural experiences were so similar, it really just sort of like melded beautifully. Yes. But yeah, all of that is sort of in the book of like, I tried so hard to marry a nice Jewish boy. I dated like every single Jewish man in Manhattan. And I really did. I'm sure like sorry guys, but I dated every single Jewish guy in Manhattan. And, it wasn't even, I'm sure you know this, sometimes it's not even that they're a bad guy. They're just not the right guy for you.
Yes.
And then I met my husband and he was the right guy for me, but nothing on paper. I was like, what? What is this? Man plans and God laughs. So that's sort of, Dara's journey. And I guess it's very much inspired by my own journey. So 13 years, we're about to celebrate 13 years of marriage. So. Mazel tov.
Yeah, exactly. So wait, how did you go from being a rabbinic, and you called yourself, what do you call yourself on your website?
Rabbinical school dropout.
Rabbinical school dropout.
Proud rabbinical school dropout.
Wait, hold on. I want to read what, you say you call yourself the only Emmy-winning, chronically-ill and disabled rabbinical school dropout.
I mean, if there's someone else there with those that can claim that, call me. We'll be besties. But yeah, I feel like my journey's been very unusual. So yeah, I sort of started in film and television. I thought that's what I wanted to do with my life. I was very successful, very young. And in that success, I realized I wasn't happy. So
wait, go back. Hold on. Successful on the writing side of?
Yeah, in television. I was working in television. I was producing daytime television. I won an Emmy. like within a year of graduation. I was creative director of a company. I had like 50 people under me. I was doing very well. And I had hit all these goals that I thought as a teenager, I wanted to be like a Manhattan TV producer, black pants and cat glasses and living in New York. And I wasn't happy. So joke's on me. I began a process of looking for what would make me happy. And what I realized is I had been living for my goals and not for my values. So I made a decision to live for my values, which is a decision I still hold to by today. And in that process, I sort of returned to the only value system I knew, which was Judaism. So I began studying. I began getting really into it. I guess they would have called me a Baal Tshuva, meaning a person who's returning to the faith. And I decided to just quit my job and move to Israel to study. And so that's what I did. I made my mother cry. I made everyone very concerned. But I did that. I followed my heart, passionate to the point of recklessness. And I spent the next 5 years studying in various seminaries, rabbinical schools, and I was training to become a rabbi. Unfortunately, the chronic illness that I had since I was about 18 years old worsened. We know a lot more now than we did when I was 18 and diagnosed. And I just kept getting sort of sicker and sicker and sicker. And I knew that I could not finish rabbinical school. I was just way too sick. I was going to kill myself to try. So I withdrew and I essentially became homebound, which I've been for sort of like the last 10 years. Very bad for 2 years, where like the only sort of thing in my life that I could do was sort of like go to the grocery store maybe once a month for half an hour. But thankfully, I was able to get a little better than that. And I decided to start writing again, and very slow process to be able to write again. But that's sort of what happened. At one point, I sat down and I wrote the matzo ball, and that book sort of took off, and it sort of became a culmination of my journey, which was the writing and the Judaism coming together, and chronic illness and sort of these invisible things all sort of culminated in sort of where I am today. So man plans, God laughs. And yeah, it's definitely an interesting story, and it's a bit of journey to get here. But, I appreciate every single second of it, because I definitely, the odds were not in my favor. So.
Wait, do you mind talking more about the illness and what it was and what happened?
Sure.
And
Sure. So I was diagnosed. So the moniker that it goes by is chronic fatigue syndrome. That's what I was diagnosed with at 18, but it's known as myalgic encephalomyelitis. Very hard to say. ME is what a lot of people go by. It is not just about being fatigued. It's a neuroimmune multi-system disease, and it actually winds up disabling 25% of people with the disease are bedbound, and 75% of people who are diagnosed with CFS will never return to working full-time, I believe the statistic is. So this is a very disabling disease with a horrible misogynistic moniker that is really meant to sort of like devalue the experience that we have as like disabled, chronically ill people. So I, for 10, 15, 20, over 20 years now, I've been living with this disease. Mine, I would say, is kind of like, it goes up and down. It's not rapid cycling. I forget the word right now. Brain fog, but remitting, relapsing. Excuse me. Remitting, relapsing. And so it means I'm a little bit better, then I get worse, a little bit better. But basically, I have to navigate my life around this disease. And then as I've got older, probably what I've got worse is like, I always joke chronic illnesses are kind of like teenagers going to a bathroom. They sort of travel in packs. So I've gotten like more conditions, unfortunately. So, but bringing back to writing, writing is my joy and my escape from the reality of these conditions. So, whether there were going to be books at the end of it or not, I'd be writing anyway. So I guess that's how you know you're a writer.
You have such a wonderful attitude and this like air of happiness around you. So
it's weird. I know. I think that's because I've had to learn to sort of hold on to my happiness. Like I'm very spastic. Like I will do something just because it makes me laugh, because it makes me feel good, because it's fun. Even if it's, I made a decision many years ago that even if my entire life was going to sort of be stuck to 4 square walls in a bedroom, that I was going to hold on to my joy, that I was going to be happy, that I wasn't going to give up, that I was going to see value in my life. And I think I've never stopped that, right? I'm still that girl who said, I want to live for my values. So, I think if you build your house around the things you believe in, you value, you love, then you'll always be happy. But yeah, I'm very spastic.
That's did not say spastic. I said happy. You said spastic.
I also don't get out much. So when I talk to people, I get very excited. So I'm very happy to be talking to you.
Wait, but are you, are you able to walk? Can you walk? Or
yeah. I am able to walk. So for me, it's more like we get something called post-exertional malaise. So it's kind of like anything you do, like you get a kickback. So I'll get a sort of uptick in flu symptoms. I'll get very fatigued. I might get a migraine. So you just have to really be careful to sort of like navigate through your disease. But again, I feel very lucky that I've gotten within my books. One of the things I sort of try to do is sort of in Matzo Ball, we talked about chronic fatigue. In Mr. Perfect on Paper, I'm talking about generalized anxiety disorder. In my third book I'm working on right now, I'm talking about chronic pelvic pain. And I feel very lucky that I'm getting to bring awareness to these sort of invisible things that otherwise we don't see in our society in a fun sort of way.
I was like dog-earing all the pages in your book about anxiety. I didn't even know that anxiety was a thing. I thought like it was just, everybody felt this way about everything. And
really?
I just didn't even know. I just assumed like everybody worried. And yeah, it's only as I've
gotten older together.
Right? I know.
Like, wait a second, that's not normal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, well, whatever. It is what it is. But it is rewarding to see in literature, whatever, other people when they're going through it and making light of it and all of that, which I really appreciated. And I appreciated, was it Christopher Steadfast? Christopher,
yes.
Right? His whole point of view came from loss and trying to make things better for his daughter and the heartbreaking nature of that and reinvention of family and, what it means to parent, to be a good parent, to date and be a parent, like all of that stuff. Super interesting and really well executed.
Yeah, I think for me, I love sort of mirroring in books and this, very Jewish concept of bashert, which is that, the other half sort of makes you better and sort of helps you fill up what you need to be a better person. And I think for both of them, they both have fears, but they're different types of fears. Yeah. So whereas her anxiety is much more irrational, she's afraid of bridges, right? She's afraid, can't go into Manhattan without thinking of all the things that could kill you, but his fears are much more like based in his experience of reality and much more about, the fear of falling in love again, the fear of being hurt again. And so they both sort of have to kind of come together in order to overcome that, which I think is sweet. And I love what you said about re-envisioning family, because I think she has to do that too. Mm-hmm. What does she want? What does she really want? So what is the vision? Because we all have a vision, right?
Yes, I know. I feel like I should tell younger people just to throw it out the window,
Yeah, whatever you're thinking, it's like man plans, God laughs. The Yiddishism right there. So
I say that often. Yeah.
All the time. Because it's true. It's totally true that, you think you know where you're going. I remember when I had to drop out of rabbinical school and sort of that feeling of what happened to my life? Like, how did this happen? 10 years. And my most exciting thing in my life was like going to the dog park and like listening to dog walkers gossip, which is fabulous, by the way. If anyone has the opportunity to do that, you should totally do that. But, it's so strange to think your life can change so much. You write a book and boom, and all this stuff happens. But the one thing I would always say is you never know for good or bad where your life is going in the next 5 years, which is why you should never give up.
So tell me about the success of the matzo ball and how that changed your life.
Well, I definitely have a lot more friends on Facebook now. It's interesting because I think the coolest part about it, aside from like being able to meet all these people and share stories, was just that feeling that like in some weird way, my life when I walked into a room was always sort of like these disparate identities. I had my Jewish identity and I had my chronically ill identity. And then I had my I want to secretly be a Real Housewife identity. And like with the matzo ball, it was like I didn't have to explain myself anymore. It was the first time I was Jewish and chronically ill and loved fabulosity. And it was in a book. And so it felt like my soul was complete. Like if I had gotten hit by a bus the next day, I would have been like, I'm good, God, thank you. And so I think for me, like that's been the coolest or best experience personally, or is the sense that like, I don't have to explain myself anymore. It's in my stories. And then obviously all the rest, like I try not to put any sort of value into like monetary or economic or ideas of success, because I think that's a really dangerous path. But I'm happy that I can write really good stories that have resonated with people. And obviously I'm glad I can pay for my medications. And I think that's it. I mean, my life has changed a lot more. I'm much busier, but I mean, I feel very blessed, and I don't take it, as I keep saying, I don't take any of it for granted. I'm just unbelievably grateful for every moment.
Wow. Tell me more about the pelvic illness novel.
So Man Plans, God Laughs. Pretty much the same weekend, I heard about the matzo ball was going to be made into a book. I woke up with what I thought sort of was like a urinary tract infection. 8 doctors, 8 rounds of antibiotics, 3 specialists later. It was not a urinary tract infection. And this sort of, it was the first time I was re-maneuvering in the medical system since my diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome. So it was during a pandemic, and eventually through like, they put me on hormones, they put me into chemical menopause, they gave me diagnosis of, everything from like fibro and clinical endometriosis, if you've been through pelvic pain, this is very common. You get every diagnosis, every medication. Finally, after surgery, they removed fibroids, they removed a tumor they found on my bladder, which turned out to be a fibroid, so it was non-cancerous. I was diagnosed with interstitial cystitis, and that began a new journey for me, which was sort of like how to reclaim my femininity and my sexuality and be sexual with pelvic pain. So I sort of had to like learn my body anew. And as I was going through this, I knew it was going to be my third book. I knew it had to be my third book. So the third book is a book about 2 rival bakeries. And the woman is suffering from chronic pelvic pain and sexual dysfunction. And it's sort of about, can you find the right recipe to fall in love? So, yeah, 2
Good
kosher
tagline.
bakeries. So, one's like an, heir to a major, like sort of baked goods empire, and the other one's like a kosher bakery in Brooklyn. So, always Jewy. So lots of rugula and funfetti challah and.
Amazing. I see a very delicious book tour coming for that. Please invite me to some of those events so I can eat funfetti challah. Actually, we have a place in the summer here. There's a farm stand down the block, and they make challah with all different flavors, which is really great. God. They even have like a jalapeno challah and a chocolate chip challah and sun-dried tomato. And anyway,
yeah. What's your favorite?
I mean, I'm so boring. I actually like the regular, just plain sea salt.
You're a purist.
I'm a purist.
I totally get it. I always say that to my husband too. Like at the end of the day, I just want, I like it the way it is. Don't put all the stuff on it.
You know what? I'm going to steal that line, purist, instead of boring, because it sounds so much better than boring, which is
like I just need a piece of chicken. I just need a
totally.
piece of challah.
Yeah. I don't want the spicy stuff. I want to just, I don't have to think about it.
Like foam on top of it.
Yeah, no flowers. Foam. No. No, thank you. Nothing even on the bottom.
Butter, I'm a happy girl.
Yeah. I am exactly the same. Thank you.
Honey.
I feel very seen right now. Thank you. Okay, parting advice. Do you have any advice for aspiring authors?
Do not give up. I mean, the only difference between a published writer and an unpublished writer is the published writer just kept at it and at it and at it. So, I used to tell myself if I could only get 1 sentence down a day, if it took me 8 years to write a book, I was going to finish a book. I was going to write a book, and turned out to be quite a prophetic and correct. It took me 10 years, but don't give up, because you can be one of those stories where it happens for you. So don't give up. All the rejections, every writer goes through it, having to learn, thinking it will never happen for you. And then one day it does. So just keep fighting. Fight a good fight. And do it because you love it. Don't do it for any other reason than because you love it. That would be my other piece of advice.
Yes. Jean, thank you. Thank you for coming on. Congratulations on Mr. Perfect on Paper, which I absolutely loved. And I'm so impressed with all of your life story and, your attitude and just all of it, and your talent and everything. I love your voice and writing so much. And anyway, keep going. I can't wait to read what you do.
Thank you so much. And thank you for putting me on your GMA Honors list. That means so much to me. And thank you for having me here. And thank you to everybody listening. And I hope you love this book as much as I do, because it is a book near and dear to my heart. So everyone go out and get Mr. Perfect on Paper. And I love you all.
Thank you, Jean. Okay, bye. Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.